Welcome back, textile students. We're on week 4 now after Easter, and welcome to Monday the 11th of May, or week beginning. You can see here we've been handed in some excellent work, some great isometric drawings. Now keep hold of these. This question definitely came up in the exam last year, where you were given an orthographic drawing of a product and then you had to translate it into an isometric product. So do keep hold of these practice drawings for revision for any exams that you might have coming up. And some great note taking. Some students choose to handwrite, which is perfect. Some students are choosing to type up. Try not to copy and paste. Do try and type up your own notes. And if you add colour and set them out like the student has here, you're onto a winner, because you've got it nicely sectioned off and you can quickly differentiate your note taking here. So absolutely superb work. Thank you very much. This week we're talking about the communication of design ideas. So I would like you to think about how you will render your work. So adding colour. Some of you in the past have used watercolours, which I think is a really good quick way of adding colour to a design work. Here on the page you can see we've got first design in watercolour. The next design is very stylised. We've got some ink and line drawings. And then the last one we've got rendered, I think, with marker pen in that last drawing there, with the stripes and the spots. So marker pens are a really good tool to have, and especially if you know at the beginning of your project your colour palette, you only need to buy 2 or 3 and then you can work on those together to create really strong presentation drawings. We're also going to be looking at presentation techniques this week in the textbook in terms of the way the page is set out, using line and shadows to create really nice 3D visual presentation pages. You can see here with the bag designs, you've got some construction lines still on the design, but actually that gives a really good idea of how the student has thought about the design of that product. And you can see also with the fashion drawings, you've got some really stylised illustrations, but some lovely details. Those bound buttonholes on the jacket and the top stitching, pockets, really good way of illustrating with those thick and thin lines. If you're worried about illustrations and how to render them, there's lots and lots of things out there on YouTube and Pinterest. These dresses with the sequins, leather, velvet, different textures, there's a website called idrawfashion.com, and the person there has created lots of tutorials of how to render, which are really good. Zoe Hong is also somebody really good on YouTube to look at how to do some rendering. You see here on these backpacks lots of design details and how the product works. So when you're designing, you need to explain how the product works with your drawings. This is a really good example of how to do that. Also in design work and illustration work, you'd be required to do what's called a design specification drawing, otherwise known in industry as a flat. So flats, it is what it says really, it's like a flat laid out garment or product where you see the different sides of the product, and then exploded diagrams to explain again in detail how the product works. And you can see to the one on the right, we've got some really, well, both of them actually have both got measurements, very specific. So in industry, when you're getting a product made, you have to present all of those details, because the depth of a collar then will help your quality control go through smoothly. So each product is going to be the same, and you have specified that as a designer. Prototype development is the next part of communicating design ideas, where you're going to twirl your product or make a mock-up. So twirl is a very unusual word. It's T-O-I-L-E, and it's specific to the textiles industry. In America, they quite often call it muslins because they're talking about the fabric that you mock something up in, and it's different, slightly different to product design. You make it generally to actual size to work out how it fits the client, how it actually fits together as a product, how the fabric hangs, and how you can fasten it, whether it's easy to get in and out of, and you're working out all of those design details. So there's lots more in the textbook that you need to read up on prototype development. The next thing we'd like you to look at is the selection of materials and components. There's lots of reasons that you would select a specific fabric or material for a product, even down to the components of the thread. There are a myriad of different threads that you can use to put a product together. We generally use a polyester also, but you can use all sorts of threads to sew products together. So read up in the book and make some notes on the selection of material and components. Tolerances. That's a really important thing in textiles. Your seam allowances are generally 1.5 centimetres seam allowance. Now, tolerance is usually spoken about in millimetres, not centimetres. And in industry, you'll notice your clothes, your garments, do not have a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. They're a lot smaller, and it's part of materials management. So you can get away with a lot less fabric with those smaller seam allowances. But your seam allowances, if you'd like to remember back to your pyjama bottoms, if you didn't make your seam allowances correct on every single seam, your waistband did not fit on. So tolerance is the allowance of the amount of space that you can be allowed to have more of or less of to still make that waistband fit on your product. So read up that, and you do need to make notes on tolerances. Materials management. Now, that is making the most out of the material that you have to use, so you've got hardly any wastage. We're talking about things like lay plans, again, seam allowances, the grain line of the product, the way it sits onto the fabric, and how all those pieces then fit together. So make sure you make some notes on materials management. Your drawing skills task this week is on orthographic projection. It's not something we do very much of in textiles, but it does come up, or it might come up in the exam. Now, I suppose our kind of orthographic projection are those flats. So those garment flats is a very similar way of making a 3D object into 2D, and you're showing the different sides. So I'd like you to watch the video link this week. It's only 5 minutes, I believe. And then I'd like you to use the worksheet and attempt to create the image there on the right as an orthographic projection. And then you're going to have the answer next week in your work set, so you can see if you've got it right. So good luck, everybody. Enjoy the week ahead, and I look forward to hearing from you.